Hello, America. Okay, so now we're going to go from the sophomore mass shooter who was taking everything inwardly, channeling everything inwardly, has now suddenly had a metamorphosis in his mind, flirting with the idea to kill, coupled with a taste for violence, and all of a sudden he said no more. And in that saying no more, where he stood his ground, this is a process now. It's not just something he does overnight. It's a metamorphosis, like the butterfly coming out of the cocoon. It takes some instances and some circumstances and some determinations and some things happening where he says, I've had enough, no more. I'm not going to take this anymore. And he takes his mind. And then remember this, it's also at that point in his life where growth has occurred. He's gone from an infant in his thinking to a young adolescent. In that young adolescent, he's entering into adulthood. In his thinking now, he might be a 17-year-old man-child, but he's still in his mind. He's growing in his thinking. His mind is growing. Pain is involved. Growth is involved. Stretching is involved. So now all of a sudden, he's a junior. He is transformed into a junior. And what makes him a junior mass shooter is that now his life is beginning to have purpose, whereby he has figured out that he's not going to take it anymore. All this garbage has been dumped on him for all of his life. He is now trying to figure out a way to channel it out, and not in a murderous, rampaging way yet. He hasn't quite made that transition yet, but in his mind's eye, he has caught a hold of something that is influencing him to believe that he doesn't have to take this nonsense anymore. And that influence is coming from dead mass shooters. Every time the talking heads drone on about these mass shooters and their life and their misery and everything else that pushed them to this point, and they come up with their textbook understanding, which is really ridiculous because they have no clue. The only way to understand violence is you have to take violence and have it been a part of your life. That's the only way you're ever going to understand violence. So, Miss Reporter and Mrs. Reporter who have never been in a fist fight, please save those opinions. They're garbage. There is no motive for this. It's a process. There is no ABC mode. Why do you think the FBI, with all their important minds and learned and educated, still have yet to put together an ABC profile on these guys? Well, here's the profile. I'm putting it together for you. Piece it together. FBI, hire me. That'll never happen. So he's a junior. He's listening to all the dronings on about the dead shooters. So many similarities until all of a sudden it becomes his pornography. It becomes his infatuation. You see, people that have purpose in life pursue that purpose. People that have purpose in life have purpose in life. When people don't have purpose, they're drug addicts, they're wayward, they're homeless, they have no reason to be alive. They have no purpose. Nothing pushing them to do better or be better at it. But when you have purpose, you try to increase those skills. If it's basketball, you become a better player. If it's baseball, a better player. If it's Wall Street, become a better broker. A husband, that's your purpose, a better husband. Father, a mass shooter, a better mass shooter. The only reason they latch on to mass shooters and the droning's on is because it makes sense. It's a comforting thing. They're not quite to the point yet where they're just ready to jump in with throw their hat into their name in the hat. Not yet. They've just become a junior mass shooter. They're just finding purpose in their life. That purpose is not yet to go shoot up a school. That purpose is to strike outwardly and stop taking to the abuse. Human beings will only take it for so long. You corner a dog and back a dog into a corner, and you keep poking him in the eye with a stick, he's going to bite you. He's going to latch back out and bite you. Because everything fights back once it's been cornered. Same thing with human beings. In his mind's eye, he's had enough of it. He's had enough. He's ready to launch out. Not in the form of killing anybody, but in the form of retaliation in his mind, whereby he's saying, I'm not taking anymore. And as he listens and more, it becomes his pornography. And when I say that, I'm not trying to be rude or lewd or anything. I'm trying to say that that's what he wakes up in the morning wanting to hear. That's what all his website visitations are about. That's why he probably doesn't keep his history on his computer. He erases it. Why? Because he doesn't want mom and dad coming and finding out that he's visiting all these porn sites that have to do with mass shooters. When I say porn site, I'm talking about mass shooter sites, because Lord knows there's a million of them on the internet. And he can go to every one of them and any one of them and go all the way back to anyone he wants to visit and learn about and catch all the full glory and gory details about them. And he's trying to piece together what's going on inside of him. There's a transition. There's a metamorphosis. He's coming out of a cocoon. He sees something here. He hasn't quite latched onto it, that it can be him, that it's for him, that he can become this. But he's leaning toward that. Remember, he's a junior. He's gone through his freshman and sophomore years. He's latched onto something now. He's metamorphosing. He's becoming something. Not quite sure what it is, but he's growing in his mind towards something. And the more he drills his head with all that visitation to the websites and the listening to the music that accompanies this kind of stuff and everything else, the games, if that's even part of it, the more he begins to see himself in the light of a mass shooter. It's a process. We don't know exactly the length of time. I'm not going to say that I do, because each mass shooter